Welcome to the Week 5 lecture. This week we are going to be discussing collaboration and editing. One example of formal collaboration would be a group paper assignment in a class. This class does not have any group assignments, but you may have a group assignment in a future class. When you have a group paper assignment, it is very important to make sure that everyone understands the assignment, including yourself. If someone does not understand the assignment, please consult the instructor to make sure that you do understand it. Active participation and leadership are very important. If no one else in the group wants to be the group leader, you should go ahead and volunteer for that if at all possible, and volunteer for what you are good at if you can, so that if you are possibly a really good proofreader and editor, that would be what you'd want to volunteer for. Or if you're really good at writing the middle of a paper and being organized, then that would be a good thing to volunteer for. Take responsibility for your own work and also keep track of what everyone else is doing and make sure that anyone who needs help gets some help. And everyone's grade could be at stake on a group paper. If your group paper does not go as well as you would like, perhaps your professor would agree to let you revise it yourself afterwards. Formal collaboration. A project at work may require teamwork. In fact, most things at work do. So if you have a formal project that you need to collaborate on, make sure that everyone understands the assignment. Active participation and leadership are again very important, and you don't have to have a fancy title to provide leadership in a group project. Volunteer again to do what you're good at. Take responsibility, and remember that everyone's reputation and possibly even job is at stake. So you don't want to lose customers by producing any work that is not up to standards. And also, when you work on a group project, you could get the attention of those who are in power and possibly improve your reputation at work. And you don't want to be the person in the project that is difficult to work with, even if you are doing a lot of the work. So you want to be polite and positive as much as possible. And remember that success is even sweeter when it's shared. So when that project comes up all successful and wonderful and everyone gets a lot of praise and it helps gain new customers, that is a wonderful feeling that you all can share. Informal collaboration. Almost all of us do this with any type of project we might have. Brainstorming. Collaboration can boost creativity and help identify pitfalls to avoid. So you can talk over a project even at the very beginning if you're allowed by your job or your school. And then during the writing process, collaboration can focus your ideas. Collaborating with a research librarian or tutor can be very helpful in the middle or any stage of a writing project. The proofreading and editing process can also lend itself well to collaboration. I have several proofreading resources myself. In fact, I was lucky enough to have a coworker who helped me through my PhD dissertation. She didn't write it for me, but she was very encouraging, told me that I should stop talking about doing it and just doing it, and read through many, many drafts of stuff that must have been very boring to her at the time. And you can clarify the assignment and ask for assistance from your professor at any stage of the project. Ways to collaborate better. It is always better to do too much than not enough. People will remember how you did on that project, and you may run into those people again, particularly if it's a work project. Be early, not late. Don't be that person who has a lot of excuses and doesn't have your work on time or doesn't do the work at all, because people will remember that too. And if you're really difficult to work with, that will make the project really unpleasant. And so now we get to talk about the fun parts of the writing process, proofreading and editing. And I ask this question here kind of ironically, but maybe not. How much do you love this part of the writing process? And as an English professor and a former newspaper editor and sometimes a software tester, I have to say that I really do kind of like finding mistakes and fixing them. So you can make a game of finding ways to improve on your work. Just an hour or two of editing the content of your paper and proofreading for grammar and spelling errors can improve your grade by a letter grade or more. And you can save time for the end of the writing process for editing and proofreading, which will improve your projects and also improve your entire life. For instance, you won't have to be doing your proofreading in a rush and leaving mistakes undetected and having to stay up late and make life difficult for yourself. And each paper should have complete sentences throughout. Is every sentence in the paper a full independent clause with both a subject and a verb? Who is the sentence about? What are they doing? If your sentence, so-called, does not contain both a legitimate subject and a real verb, it is not really a sentence. It is a fragment, kind of like this lovely piece of pottery, which is a fragment but will not hold any water and is mostly just good for looking at now. Fragments are not sentences. We can actually turn a sentence into a fragment by adding a word, which seems really strange. But like in this relatively simplistic example, the cat sat on the couch. That is a complete thought, a complete sentence. But when we add the word when in front of it or the word although, then our brain is expecting more from the sentence. It's no longer a complete thought even though it has an extra word in it. Another common way of creating fragments is to use ing words at the beginning of what we intend to be a sentence, as in thinking quickly. This phrase really doesn't have a real noun or a real verb. It's not a complete sentence. The word quickly is just an adverb and can't do anything for us as a subject or a verb. So this word here, thinking, is trying to be both the noun and the verb at the same time, which does not work. The noun and the verb have to be separate words. Two sentences can be connected by a comma and a conjunction. You may have already seen this comment on your paper. This is one of my most common things to comment on in papers. If we have two complete sentences or independent clauses, we can add them together with the proper punctuation. Here we have two little bitty sentences. The cat sat, the dog ran. We can put those two little sentences together with a comma and a coordinating conjunction. The cat sat, but the dog ran. And of course this but here is showing that there's a bit of disagreement between the first sentence and the second that we combined. These two sentences are connected by that comma and conjunction, and then the other two conjunctions or two that we could use are and or. Also, don't start sentences with a conjunction such as, but it works for journalism. One of the most painful comments I ever got on a paper as I was writing my undergraduate papers was that I should not start a sentence with and because that is good enough for journalism but not good enough for a history class. So I still remember that comment many years later. Also, a comma by itself cannot connect two independent clauses. That is called a comma splice, and it's frowned upon in academic circles. Two sentences could also be connected with a semicolon, and I could say that this is my car, but it's not. The car is in the driveway, period. The groceries are in the trunk. So we have two separate independent clauses, and then we can combine them together with just a semicolon. The semicolon has more power than a comma, so it's allowed to connect two sentences together like this. And you'll also want to vary the length of your sentences. If you use tiny sentences all the time, your writing will get to be choppy. However, if all of your sentences are long and go on and on and on, your reader may become tired of reading them. A good writer knows to mix shorter and longer sentences. Variety can be a very good thing. Commas in a series. If you have a series of items, put a comma after each item in the series. Now this comma before the and is optional, and it's actually called the Oxford comma, which you can look up, but it's not that important to know that it's called that. But this comma here before the and is before the last item in the series, and the last item in the series should also be the same form of word like nouns that are plural, but it's not. So in this case, this part of our series doesn't quite fit, so we could give it its own sentence. And then so that it would be all by itself. And then one more thing about commas here that I've kind of hidden in this slide is this comma here after at the pet shop. After this initial phrase, the real sentence starts. So this comma here indicates that we have introductory material, but the real sentence starts here. So that's what I mean when I say you can put a comma after introductory material to show where the real sentence begins. Apostrophes. We can use an apostrophe to show that a noun is possessive. If there's just one cat, then we put the apostrophe before the S. If there are more than one cats, or there are more than one cats, I'm still not doing that right. Anyway, if the cat's bowls needs washing, then we would put the apostrophe after the S. And we can also use an apostrophe to take the place of absent letters in a contraction, such as, I can't understand why you don't enjoy writing papers. But it's really best not to use contractions in academic papers anyway. Proofreading tips. Read your work on paper instead of the computer screen. It is much easier to find mistakes on paper copies. Read your work out loud to catch mistakes. You can consult with the Smart Thinking online tutoring, and there's a link in this week's lectures and resources folder. You can ask a colleague or friend for proofreading feedback. However, please make sure they do not actually try to write your paper for you. That can result in problems. And they can help you proofread for mistakes that you cannot catch, but the paper must remain your own. And the Purdue OWL has more suggestions for proofreading. I'll also have this lecture in a PowerPoint form that you can view at your own pace if you like. I hope you all have a great week, and thank you very much.